1979, poverty, crime, and the drug trade characterized much of Roanoke's West End neighborhood. Vacant lots, abandoned buildings, and deteriorating rental properties were widespread. A number of children were also wandering the streets without supervision, and there'd been an increase in vandalism. In response, churches and organizations in the neighborhood formed a coalition to establish the West End Center for Youth as a safe haven for the neighborhood children. Today, the center serves some of the children of those who came to it decades ago and has expanded its mission to provide academic and social skills training to kids from all over the city. My guests today are Executive Director Karen Pillis, who's a lifelong Roanoker and joined the West End Center after a long volunteer and work history with children and their families, and McKinley Forrest, who's a former employee and is on the board of the center. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to have you, and I know, sometimes we want to be careful because our viewing area is large. So we're talking about a very specific part of Roanoke City.
Yes.
But I think what we're going to talk about today applies much more widely in terms of what kids need and how to provide it. Karen, I'm just going to ask you first, what is the West End Center and who does it serve?
Well, it is an after-school and summer program, full-day summer program for about 130, 150 youth per year, kindergarten through 12th grade. They live around the center and they live further away than that. We get buses in the school year from all the schools in Roanoke City except for the two far into southeast because they have several after-school centers down there. So we are blessed to have buses from all the middle schoolers. We have buses from most of the elementary schools. So a lot of the kids come to us who have friends that are coming with them from their schools. So that makes them feel comfortable and safe there because they get off the bus with 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 20 other friends of theirs. And you ask, who did we serve? We serve the best kids in Roanoke, of course. We have amazing children who have a long history, some of them with us through their mothers and their grandmothers. We have people on our board who send their children to us. We have one of our children right now is a 6-year-old little boy who his mother went to the center and his grandmother used to work at the center. So we have a long history of serving the people in Roanoke City and those around us in an ever-evolving, changing way.
So McKinley, you're, again, board member and you have a child who goes to the center. First of all, how did you choose West End Center as the place that you trusted to keep your kids?
So kind of the West End Center chose me. I found my way there as an employee and then I just loved it. And then when I left and got the opportunity to come on the board, there's no other place that I'd want to send my kid after school and throughout the summer. So it was just something that made an impression on me as an employee and then still does now, even afterwards.
You know, a phrase that I think came out when I was a kid, the latchkey child, right? The kid who lets themselves in at the end of the school day. That can lead to problems, right? What happens when a kid doesn't have a place to go after school?
I think that,
or during the summer.
I mean, we all know, we all see it. We see kids at home on their games. I mean, the best case scenario is kids are home on their games, right? I mean, they're safe then, they're relatively safe. But often, I think in the after school time, kids that are unsupervised or who have more freedom than maybe they can developmentally handle are getting themselves into some trouble. They can have some poor peers that we don't know as parents. I mean, I've raised 3 children. I'm glad I was able to be at home in the afternoon with my kids, or that my husband was, because we could keep an eye on it. We could be the place they came, which now I just have a place where everybody can come that's 130 kids, where I used to have a place, for a much smaller group. And I think that after school time is the time that parents like to see their kids get their homework done. They like to know that their children's program at school is being enriched by what is being offered in the after school time. But if they weren't coming to a group environment like West End and they were home, I would, they're wandering, they're watching things on TV or on the computer that maybe we wouldn't want them to be watching as parents. And I know they aren't doing their homework. I mean, let's face it, what kid's gonna come home from school and do their homework unless their parents are saying it over?
And they also have access to everything else that's in your home.
Right.
And so it can become a safety issue. When you worked, how old were you when you worked at the center?
I was in my late 20s, so just probably the last 10 years or so.
And you know, what impressed you about the program when you worked there? I mean, I'm sure you came in the first time, this is a job, I get to do this, I like spending time with kids, but it's more than just spending time with kids, right?
What really impressed me is that, like Karen had expressed earlier, it's generations of people who have now utilized the West End Center to help bridge the gaps that they might be missing in their family and their child's development. It's a place where we've watched students come in as a kindergartner or a first grader who have now graduated. And so that just made a difference to me. It was like these kids care about it, their parents care about it. And so it wasn't just like a daycare, it was somewhere that they felt that was theirs.
And you know, demographers and urban planners talk about the idea of the third place, right? It's the coffee shop, it's the community library. That's for grown-ups. But kids kind of need that too, right?
Well, and I think, yes, and so I would hope that West End is their third place. You know, there's school, and there's home, and then there's West End. And I think the other thing that you hear when you talk to experts on children is that one of the biggest protective factors we can provide for our children is to give them other trusted adults in their life, to give them people that they can talk to about their problems, about their issues, about their triumphs, about their successes, other than us as parents. And I know that a lot of parents, you know, would rather them talk to their grandmother or their aunt, but sometimes people want to talk to somebody that's not related to them. And I think that that's to get to McKinley's point of we have children that start in kindergarten and go all the way through high school. They've built relationships with us. And we think that that is what we probably offer that's the most valuable. So we do homework and we have enrichment, but we have people who love our kids, and the kids know that. So that's a great asset.
How are you funded? Do the parents pay? How does that work?
Well, the parents do pay a nominal fee. We have it's $25 for the first child and $15 for the second child and $0 for any more children. And the parents can also volunteer. They get paid $15 an hour to volunteer, which comes off their bill. We give them a $15 an hour credit. They also can go to the grocery store and buy healthy snacks or paper products. We're always needing paper towels or toilet paper. We go through a lot of spoons. So they can buy that kind of thing, and they can bring me the receipt and they get that off their bill. Or we also have a LEAP. The West End Market comes to the Freedom First right beside West End on Tuesdays, and if they'll bring us their receipt from that, we give them that and a half off of their bill. So we are encouraging healthy food. Just to encourage
healthy food. You mentioned that, you know, the extra children, there's a small charge and then, you know, no charge. McKinley, in your time working there, did you notice, I'm thinking about the older siblings who often have so much responsibility put on them. As soon as they're old enough, their parents say, you're in charge, and that's not always the best move for a 12-year-old or, you know, who's taking care of a 6-year-old. How does the center sort of help with that situation?
It definitely alleviates a burden, because that, as a 12, 13-year-old, and you're in middle school, you're kind of worried about your friends and stuff like that. And to be kind of hampered down by taking care of your little brother, little sister, now you know that you can go to the middle school side and you're going to be doing your thing and hanging out, learning, enrichment, and then they're going to be on the elementary school side doing their thing, and you don't have to, all you have to do is make sure they make it there and then they make it to the car to get home. That's a lot less stressful for a teenager or a preteen when you know that your little siblings are also in a safe place.
I think we ask older siblings to grow up faster, right?
Right.
And
I was the oldest, yes.
I'm the youngest, so I benefited from all of that. So when you talk about tutoring, obviously kids learn a wide variety of things from, you know, pre-K to high school. How does that work? What's your model for providing that tutoring?
Well, we have tutors from all over, but a lot of our tutors are from Roanoke College, Raleigh Court Presbyterian offers us a lot of tutors. They have a very strong volunteer program that runs through that church. We have longtime tutors who've been with us for many, many years who are, have watched children grow up at the center and have strong relationships with them. And we also have specialized tutors. So someone's taking physics. It doesn't happen often. I mean, none of my kids took physics, but if we had those specialized curriculum needs, we do have a pool of people that we can call. We have a few doctors, retired doctors. We have a few college professors who will come over and tutor those more advanced subjects. We have a lot of our tutors really like the small children. You know, they're a lot more fun and a lot less resistant to have to do their homework. We have on staff, we have a literacy coordinator as well as a STEAM coordinator. So he is both now. We kind of put them together. And so every day, these children have homework, and 2 times a week they will have a reading group, and 2 times a week they will have STEAM groups. So
STEAM being science, technology, engineering, arts.
And math. And math. And don't forget math, because I'm about to talk about math. We have a really exciting new kind of collaboration with 2 retired math teachers from Roanoke City Schools who have introduced the concept of numeracy to us, which I had never heard that concept, which is kind of an ease and comfort and understanding of numbers, the way that we talk about literacy with words. And kids get it all sorts of ways. And who knew, you know, when we were playing Uno with our children when they were little, that we were helping them to build number skills, and we are. But a lot of times our families, they're working, they work late, they come home and they cook dinner, they come home and have football or soccer or basketball, and they don't have a lot of time to play those kind of games with kids. So we have a drive going now for math-centered games that the kids will be playing and not even knowing that they're learning those math skills. So one of the other things that volunteers can do is if kids don't have homework, they can come to West End and play games with kids. And that might be Farkle, it might be Yahtzee. I mean, there could be any number of games that you might be familiar with, I might be familiar with, and you'll be playing it with kids who they'll think it's the greatest thing because they're not having to do homework. They're playing games instead. So
tricking them into learning, right?
Tricking them into enjoying learning, yes, that's exactly right. We are really excited about being able to broaden that enrichment that we're offering them, and in a fun way that those who might need some help will be getting it, and those who may already have those concepts will just have fun doing it.
Right, and they can demonstrate to the other
Right.
kids that this can be fun. Obviously, McKinley, as a board member, you understand the importance of volunteers. It sounds like you can't hire your way through all these problems.
No.
How important are volunteers, and what do you all say to people to encourage them to become volunteers?
It's a blessing to be around some of these kids. And so sometimes that's just the message in itself, because you can grow up and evolve and get away from some of the daily kind of activities kids find. And so if you're playing Uno or Mancala with some kids that even as adults that we don't really have time to kind of let our brains relax themselves and just play games with some kids, it's just a blessing to just see some of them kind of interact when they know that you're coming every Tuesday or every Thursday. So they kind of start looking forward to you. So that's how you kind of sell that, is you can make some real connections and matter to some kids that you never thought so.
You know, as professionals, if you're a school teacher, there's professional development, and there are other schools, and there are these state standards. As someone who's providing after school and summer care, and maybe the answer is that this doesn't exist, but are there organizations that other communities in our region belong to that you can interact with and learn from?
Well, I think that they're limited, and more limited than with schools. But we do have a strong network of after-school centers in Roanoke that come together monthly through a collaboration that is actually funded a little bit by United Way of Roanoke Valley. And so we can learn from each other. We can also refer to each other. I don't have any more room for middle schoolers, do you? And so we utilize each other for that. We also are all, I think, interested in the idea of exploring what trauma-informed care in the after-school time looks like, because many of our children have undergone a lot of trauma, whether it's community trauma or individualized trauma. And so we want to grow our program's understanding of the developmental issues that children may face. And the school system also does provide some open trainings that we're able to go to. We are a licensed after-school center, so we also can take advantage of the Department of Education. We are through the Department of Education, so we can take advantage of some of the Department of Education trainings that are provided. They license us through their early childhood portion though, and since we have kindergarten through high school, some of those trainings aren't quite appropriate, but they do a lot of trauma-informed trainings and developmentally appropriate trainings. So,
I want to know a little bit about your relationship to the schools and to teachers. Each of these kids has their own unique set, and I know with 150 kids or 130 kids, you can't keep up with all of that, but how do you try to work with? Is there a way that you try? Do you remember doing that when you were an employee?
Yeah, so there's always on staff, there's an education director. And right now our education director is a second or technically third generation West End Center kid herself. And so her role is to, at times, advocate with the parents and children for whatever they need from the schools, whether it's IEP based or anything. But her main job is just to make sure that there's a working connection between the student, parent, and the school. And so that's kind of where she fits in, and she helps come up with curriculum while they're there in the afternoon too.
We're always glad her name is Desiree, and Desiree is always glad to go to IEP meetings with the families. They have utilized us that way. She often will ask children when they come in, I hear her often say, let's get on your student view, and let's get on
Student View being like the online portal for kids.
And so let's see what you have due, and let's look at your grades. And so we do ask for children's grades to be sent to us so we can see where they're up and down and all around. But she also does it daily, especially with our middle schoolers, who I think that at times have kind of fallen through in the academic world. She will almost look at their site, their portal, every day to see what they're missing. I don't want to show you, Ms. Des, but she'll look at what they're missing and what they need. We've met with their literacy people at Roanoke City Schools, and they have suggested some strategies for us to help with reading and some books and how we can evaluate our children's reading levels. It's a little bit different now than it used to be, because it used to be if you knew that a kid was at this level, you could give them these books. And you probably have some on your shelves at home that says level 2, level 3. Right. But now it's a little bit different, it's a little more complicated, and they really gave us some insight on how we could best help our children in reading. So that was very helpful. If I've called and said I need this, the Roanoke City Schools has been nothing but helpful for us.
As a former middle school teacher and parent of middle schoolers, that, having that extra person, and that's such a critical time, that time between elementary when they seem to be pretty supervised and high school when you hope they're taking care of it on their own, that middle school time is so critical, and to have a third person being able to do that.
She sits and looks in the morning, so she works full time, and she comes in, and often in her morning is to send teacher emails. I saw that they're missing 5 assignments. They say they're not online, and they say that they can't get them. If I come by and pick them up, can they make them up? So she is not only helping them with their academic work, but she's advocating with the schools for them, much like a parent would do if they had time.
If they weren't at work and they weren't right. Yeah. And so this leads us into kind of a technology discussion as a technology guy. I imagine that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, West End Center didn't need to worry about that so much. They might do a little computer lab time at school, but it wasn't so required for all of them. I may be wrong, but it seems to me like the technology part of it is probably both blessing and curse for you all.
I think the biggest blessing and curse that's happened for children, and I don't know that they even realize it, is Roanoke City schools, because all of our children but 2 go to Roanoke City schools, have changed their philosophy about homework. So we no longer have children who have hours and hours, especially elementary schools.
I'm really glad to hear that as a parent of former
Right.
Roanoke City students.
They really try to make their homework impactful, and they give them time in the school day to do it. It is a culturally appropriate thing to do because not everybody goes home and has somebody who can help them with their homework. But what it meant to us, our 45-minute homework block and then reading and then, is what are we going to do with them, because all they want to do is get on the computer. So we have computer game sites, but they have to do something else first. And even if they don't have any homework, so they have to play an educational game. They have to write a letter to a staff member to thank them for something they did. They have to write a letter to a family member. They have to do something that is academic, do some worksheets. I'll say that dreaded word, those worksheets. It may be a word search. It could be anything. And then they can get on the educational websites. But it is different. The technology has changed, and the changing philosophy around schoolwork in the after-school time is changing our program drastically.
Sure. As board member, McKinley, what do you see as the biggest needs for West End right now?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always a big thinker. So expansion, and growth. In my head, every child on every level needs some place to go and be safe. So growing and being able to facilitate more kids coming and having that safe place to kind of grow and nurture themselves is always my goal and dream.
All right. And how about you, Ms. Executive Director?
Money is always a great thing. Would always be a great thing, and you can't have too much. But I think we're in the midst of a strategic planning effort. It's my first one as Executive Director. And I think that a lot of those dreams are going to start to come out. And I think that there will be a opportunity for our stakeholders to weigh in on that. And I don't know what direction. It's exciting because I don't know what direction we're going to be going in. But I do think that one of the biggest needs I see in our community is what happens after West End Center? What happens after schools?
And I wanted to ask you about that. I know that you all have been working with the Gun Violence Task Force. We've had them on the show if anybody wants to watch. We've got 2 episodes last year where we had folks in. And with that, you're focusing beyond the 18-year-olds, right?
So McKinley hasn't told you really what hooked him to West End, but there is a young woman that is, when I started partnering with West End, she was in, I believe, the 3rd grade, maybe 2nd, and you came to work soon after that, so she was young then. And we both worked very closely with her through the years. It's one of the things that I think we got to know each other a little better through this young woman. And watching her grow up and watching what happened to her when she turned 18, which is she got her life together. She did a great job. But watching how it could have easily not been that way, and knowing she's somebody we both care about, and me seeing so many kids not get it together when they turn 18. School system's gone. West End Center's gone. Think about the difference between going to Sunday school, because a lot of our families are very faithful, going to Sunday school as a kid and then going as an 18-year-old. Who does that? Nobody does that yet. You have those years where you're kind of lost.
Sort of the gap where nobody is, you're a grown-up, so nobody's worried about you, and yet there's a lot of potential problems.
And you're a grown-up and nobody can tell you anything because you're a grown-up, right? How many times how many times did you say that as, when I'm 18? And so these children, they go to Virginia Western, they get financial aid, they get Fs, they drop out, they owe money back, they get their first couple of jobs, maybe they blow through them because, they're late, they sleep late, whatever it is, and they are really struggling. They are vulnerable to really poor outcomes in life and unhappiness. So for me, I want them to be happy and healthy, and I see them depressed, and so they're sitting in their basements gaming. If they're young women, they're working underemployed and they are not having a good time in life. And I think that's the age group that's most vulnerable to gun violence. So being the victims and being the perpetrators.
Right.
I started last November at West End. By January, we had, just in the 10 years prior, those kids that I had been partners with West End over the last 10 years, we had lost 2 to gun violence who were in that 18 to 24-year-old range. We had lost 2 as perpetrators who were now in prison for most of the rest of their life from gun violence. And we had lost 1 who was older than that 18 to 24-year range. And so I really wanted to do something about it, and I was devastated. There were children that he was connected to, I was connected to, and it became very apparent that we needed to take a place.
And boy, would I like to know more about that. And I wish I'd asked that question earlier, because I think it's a deep place that we can go. But sadly, that's all the time we have. So I hope that today's show got you thinking about how you can help programs like West End Center in your own community. If you'd like to learn more about the work they do, and especially around gun violence, you can visit them online at westendcenter.org. For What It Takes, I'm Tom Landon.